Water is one of those things we see every day, but it has this incredible dual personality. It can be a gentle rain, right? But it can also be a wave powerful enough to literally move buildings. It's the planet's #1 architect, always in this powerful cycle of creating and destroying. So today we're going to dig into exactly how this one element sculpts the entire world around us.
And that's really the big question, isn't it? How can something as simple and fluid as water carve solid rock, build massive beaches, and, over time, grind down entire mountain ranges? It seems impossible. Well, let's dive right in.
I mean, if you've ever been knocked flat by a wave at the beach, you felt just a tiny fraction of its raw energy. Now imagine that same force just multiplied over thousands, even millions of years. That's what we're talking about. Water is this relentless artist working on a scale that's almost hard to comprehend.
Okay, so to really get how water works, you've got to know its two main moves, erosion and deposition. It's kind of like it takes away with one hand and gives back with the other. Erosion is the destructive part. It carves, it grinds, it wears things down. And then deposition is the complete opposite. That's when the water slows down, drops all the stuff it was carrying, and actually builds brand new land. All right, so let's head to our first stop, the coast. I like to think of this as the ultimate collision zone. It's this dynamic, chaotic place where the land meets the incredible energy of the ocean. And this is where that battle between erosion and deposition is just on full display. So get this, not all waves are created equal. You've got your constructive waves, think of them as the beach builders. They have a really strong swash, which is the part that pushes sand and sediment up onto the beach. But then you have their evil twin, the destructive waves. These guys are the beach thieves. They have a super powerful backwash that just sucks all that sand right back out to sea. And this right here is a perfect example of what happens when those destructive waves just go to town on a rocky cliff. So first, they find a little weakness and carve out a cave. Then, they keep hammering away until they punch right through the other side, creating this beautiful arch. And eventually, gravity's gonna win. The top of the arch collapses, and what you're left with is this lonely pillar of rock, a sea stack.
So the really crucial thing to get here is that when you look at something amazing like the 12 Apostles, you're not just seeing cool rocks in the ocean. You're actually seeing the ghosts of an old coastline. It's a crystal clear, dramatic signpost showing you exactly where the land used to be before the sea wore it all away.
But okay, let's flip the script. Let's look at what happens when water builds things up. This feature is called a tombello. And here, instead of destroying the coast, those constructive waves have been hard at work depositing so much sand that they've built a natural bridge connecting what used to be an island to the mainland. This is water as the architect, not the demolisher. All right, let's leave the salty coast behind us for a bit and follow freshwater on its own epic journey. We're going to track a river all the way from its super energetic beginnings, way up in the mountains, down to its slow, quiet end where it meets the sea. So, picture this. Way up in the mountains, a river is young, it's steep, and it is fast. It's got maximum erosive power here. It basically acts like a liquid saw blade, just carving these incredibly deep gorges and dramatic valleys right into the bedrock. This is the river at its absolute most aggressive. You can really think of a river as having a life story, and this slide captures it perfectly. In the upper course, it's a powerful destroyer. Then, in the middle course, it starts to get a little older, a little slower. It meanders and it starts depositing all this nutrient-rich soil onto floodplains. By the time it gets to the lower course, it's basically exhausted, and it drops the last bits of sediment it's carrying to build new land, which we call a delta.
Okay, next up we're looking at water in its solid form, glaciers. Now, they might be incredibly slow, but let me tell you, they are arguably the most powerful sculptors on the entire planet. We're not talking about carving valleys anymore. We're talking about reshaping entire continents.
Yeah, forget about fast-moving water for a second. A glacier is literally a river of ice. It's a slow-motion bulldozer that flows under its own incredible weight. And it doesn't just carve a little valley, it scours, scrapes, and completely reshapes the landscape on a massive, massive scale. And they do this in a few pretty brutal ways. There's plucking, which is literally where the ice at the bottom of the glacier freezes onto huge chunks of rock and just rips them right out of the ground. And then there's abrasion, where all those rocks trapped in the ice act like a giant piece of sandpaper, grinding down the bedrock below. It's just this unstoppable force. Now this number is just wild. 75%. 3/4 of all the fresh water on planet Earth is locked up inside glaciers. I mean, think about that. They're these colossal frozen reservoirs, and they act as natural regulators, feeding our rivers and streams, especially when things get dry.
So here's the thing. The vast majority of these nearly 200,000 tracked glaciers are melting. They're in retreat. And the retreat of these massive freshwater stores isn't just changing landscapes, it's got huge consequences, threatening water supplies for millions and creating new risks like flash floods all over the world.
So it's pretty clear we live on a planet that's always changing, always in motion. For this last part, let's talk about how we as humans try to manage and, well, live with these powerful, unending forces of nature.
When it comes to managing our coasts, we basically have two main philosophies, two paths we can take. There's hard engineering, which is all about building big, physical structures like seawalls to try and fight nature head-on. And then there's soft engineering, which is a much more subtle approach that tries to work with natural processes instead of against them.
And this is the classic hard engineering problem, right? You build a massive seawall to protect the road or the houses behind it. But what that wall does is deflect wave energy and stop the natural movement of sand. So you might solve one problem, but in the long run, you could end up losing the entire beach in front of the wall.
But check this out. This is a fantastic example of that other approach. In Adelaide, a natural process was moving sand north along the coast, which was starving the southern beaches. So instead of just building a bunch of walls, their Living Beaches strategy uses a pipeline to actually pump that sand back south. They're working with the natural cycle, not fighting it. It's pretty smart.
But you know, these shifting landscapes, they're not just about rock and sand. They're also archives, libraries of human history. Shell middens, which you find all along the coast, are these incredible records of indigenous life. They've got tools, food remains, and fire pits that tell a story stretching back thousands and thousands of years.
And here's where it all connects. These incredibly precious historical sites are often located in the most dynamic, most erosion-prone parts of our landscape. That coastal collision zone we talked about, they are literally being washed away by the very same forces that are shaping our world. Just let that sink in for a second. A 12,000-year-old story, written in shells and stone, sitting right on the edge of a continent that's actively being eaten away by the ocean. It's this profound and kind of fragile intersection of geology and culture.
Which leaves us with this final, really complicated question. On a planet that's defined by constant, powerful change, how in the world do we protect the fragile, irreplaceable records of our own past? It's really the ultimate challenge of learning to live with the flow.